All right, clarinet friends, I'm Mrs. Fry, and I'm back with our second video. This video is going to go into how to put together our mouthpiece and barrel and ligature and reed. So those are the first parts that I want you to start with when you're first starting to make a sound. This is the part of the instrument that makes the sound. So the rest of the instrument with the keys and everything, that helps you change notes and do different things. But if you start with just the mouthpiece and barrel, if you can make a really good sound on your mouthpiece and barrel, you can make a really good sound on any note on the instrument. So we always start with the mouthpiece and barrel. Even when we're in co-op, when we're in sectionals warming up, the very first thing we're always going to start with is mouthpiece and barrel. Okay? So we talked about in our last video the parts. And so the parts that we're going to be talking about today are your barrel, your mouthpiece, your ligature, and you're going to need a reed. So open up a reed if you haven't gotten into your package yet and find one reed. Okay? All right, you're also going to need your cork grease. So I talked a little bit about cork grease in the last video. I said it probably looks like chapstick. So you either have like a little circle one or one that looks just like this, like chapstick. So this is my cork grease. The brand on the cork grease really does not matter. That's like the one thing that I do not care on brand. So kind of have all those parts out. Those are the parts that we're going to work with today. All right, so the first thing we need to do, so we're going to start with the barrel and the mouthpiece and how to put those together. So every piece of the instrument that you put with another part has a cork on it. So this is the cork. This is the tenon. So T-E-N-O-N. The tenon is any part that you put into another part. So this is called the mouthpiece tenon and the mouthpiece cork. So in order for the parts to connect, you have to grease the cork. So you're going to take your cork grease, open it up. If you have the kind that is in a tube, you can roll it up. If you have the little circle kind, you can just kind of use your finger and rub on it. But you're going to take it and just put a very, very little bit. So just a few little dots. I do like 3 little dots all around the mouthpiece, and then use your fingers to spread that around the cork. So the way that I say it is you want it to be greasy, but not goopy. So notice you don't see big goops or gobs of grease on my cork, right? All right, so then you're going to take that. The barrel, there's 2 ends. There's the top and the bottom. The top is the smaller side. So you'll notice one side's bigger than the other. The mouthpiece goes into the smaller side. If you try to put it into the wrong side, you'll notice like it doesn't fit. It just kind of sticks in there. So you're going to take the barrel in one hand, the mouthpiece in the other. Make sure you don't have a ligature or anything on your mouthpiece, just the mouthpiece, okay? Take one in each hand, push, and you may have to push a little bit hard if your mouthpiece is new. Push and twist until you have those 2 parts together. Okay, so this is what it should look like. All right, next we're going to start with the ligature. We're going to talk about your ligature. Now, there are different types of ligature, and without me physically being there with you, I can't really tell you what kind you have. But the most important thing to remember about a ligature is the screws go to the right. So if you put your ligature on and you're like, I think this is right, but your screws are on the left, you know that you did something wrong, okay? Chances are it's either upside down or backwards. So my mouthpiece and my ligature go like this. So if I'm looking at my mouthpiece, the screws are on the right. They're on my right. If I'm looking at the open part, the window, this is what we call the window, the open hole in the mouthpiece. If I'm looking at that side like this, the screws are on my right. Okay? Now, mine is what we call an inverted ligature. So the screws of my mouthpiece or of my ligature are on the back. So they're underneath the beak. This is the beak. Okay? The beak, it looks like a bird's beak. The part that slants down is the beak. So my screws are right there. Now you may have a regular traditional ligature where your screws are under the window. That's fine. It doesn't really matter at this point. Later on, you might have a preference. In the beginning, it doesn't matter that much. Just make sure your screws are on the right. So if I turn my ligature to where the screws are on the right, but underneath the window, it doesn't fit. It won't go down. But if I flip it the right way, it goes all the way down real easy. So if you're like, I don't know if I have it the right way, you just kind of have to use logic. If it doesn't feel like it's going on, it's probably not the right way. And when you have it the right way, the screws will be on the right. Okay? So I have my ligature on. When you put the ligature on, you're going to want to loosen the screws, but don't take them out. So my screws are loosened to where they're almost at the end, but they're not actually coming out. Okay, that's what allows it to slide all the way down. Like I said, if it's not sliding all the way down, try turning it over. That might be why. Okay? All right. Okay, so now that we have the parts of our mouthpiece and ligature and barrel together, the next step is the reed. The reed is the most important part of your instrument. It's what vibrates to create the sound. Okay? So your reed, I recommend starting on a size 2.5. So you can look at the back of your reed and see a number. Mine's a 3.5. But if you're just starting out, 2.5 is where you should be. If you're on a 2, that's all right. I really wouldn't go harder than a 2.5 to start. If you already bought a box, just use what you have. And then when you buy another box, we can adjust from there. You should always have multiple reeds. So in my reed case right now, I have 4 reeds. I always try to have at least 4 because they break, something happens. You want to have 4 good reeds at all times. So if one wears out or one breaks, you replace it with another one. You should always have at least 4, okay? Reeds do not last forever. They'll break, they'll chip, they'll mold. I know it's kind of gross. They'll wear out. So when one starts to wear out and it's not working as well, it's time to move on to another reed. I rotate my reeds. So every day I kind of play on a different one of the 4 that I have in my case. That just helps them last longer if they have time to dry out before the next time you play it. Okay. I will probably talk to you a lot about reeds throughout the year. I'm a little bit of a reed nerd. Okay. So what you're going to do with your reed, the reed has to be wet to vibrate. So you're going to take it, you're going to put it in your mouth. Just kind of let it sit on your tongue, and you're going to do that on both sides, flip it over, and then you're even going to put the tail end, the bottom end, in your mouth as well. So the whole reed should be wet, okay? The reed goes between the mouthpiece and the ligature. Say hello to Maddie. Maddie, go over there. Okay. So you're going to take your finger on your ligature and just kind of slide it up so there's a little bit of space between the ligature and the mouthpiece. Now your reed has a front, this is the front, and a back. The back is usually where the words are. The back is the part that goes against the mouthpiece, between the mouthpiece and ligature. So, all right, so real quick, let's talk about some reed parts before we get into actually putting it on. You have the heel. This is the heel. It's the thick part at the bottom. The tip is the curved, thin part at the top. The rails are the sides, okay? If you look at your mouthpiece, you'll see some of the same shapes. So the curve at the top, the flat, this is the reed table. It's the table where the reed sits. Your mouthpiece also have rails. So very logically, you have the shape of the reed on the mouthpiece, okay? So when you're putting your reed on, you're gonna slide the heel of the reed between the mouthpiece and the ligature. I'm trying my best to do this where you can see it. So I'm sliding my ligature up. The heel is going between the mouthpiece and the ligature. Okay? And then I'm lining up my ligature on the bottom half of my reed. Okay? Okay, so I'm lining up my reed with the bottom half. Okay? So the tip lines up with the tip. Okay? You never want to see your reed like poking over your mouthpiece. So you want to make sure the tip lines up with the tip. Okay? So you can't really see the reed over the back. If you look at the front, it almost perfectly lines up. You may see a little sliver of black at the top. And then you want the rails to line up down the sides. So the rails of the reed line up with the rails of the mouthpiece. You can kind of use your thumb and your pointer finger to put that together. And then you're going to push your ligature down and then tighten the screws. Like I said, your screws may be on top of your reed, that's fine. So tighten, tighten, tighten until they stop. Don't over tighten or try to force them closed more than they naturally go. That'll break your ligature. Okay? So now that I have it together, you can see my ligature is holding my reed on. My reed is lined up on both sides and on the top. Okay? You cannot see any of the reed poking out from the back. That's how you assemble the mouthpiece and the barrel. Sorry for the disruptions in this video. Things are a little crazy at my house. But hopefully that helps you out. If you can't get it or if you have questions, feel free to reach out or email me a picture or whatever you need to do to get some help. Okay? All right. See y'all later.